Welcome to the next in the series of speaker interviews for Memphis Agent Camp 2026. My guest this time is Christopher Bulin. So, Christopher,
I'm
how are
good.
you, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me, Doug.
Well, thank you for coming on. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I live in Olive Branch, Mid South, probably for the past 10 years. Originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Moved to the Carolinas. Met my wife. Now we reside in Olive Branch. Primarily for most of my career, I've been in the payment space, merchant services, credit card processing. Um, Recently launched a startup that we closed down last April. And then from there, I kind of had to go back into the workforce. Literally, my wife told me I had to go get a job, get a real job, in regards to things. And so that was kind of the start of where I'm at right now. I'm currently employed at a local staffing agency here in Memphis, and just trying to find people jobs, things like that. However, I do dabble quite a bit in tech in regards to things. I know enough to get myself into a hole, and then I rely on people that are smarter than me to get me out of it. Um, but I'm fascinated with technology, how it works, how it operates. I'm always asking questions like why? Why are things this way? Sometimes it's gotten me into trouble in the past, but it's definitely kind of what led me to to this platform and so forth. So
So, the title of your talk is going to be Why Digital Assets Need Proof, Not Trust. Go ahead and give us an overview of what that's about.
so kind of back to my last venture. My last startup was called Payments Guardian. One of the things that we were trying to solve was automating PCI compliance. And before I even dive into the rabbit hole of what PCI compliance is, if you take credit cards, basically there's a set framework that you have to follow in regards to things. And so I've always been fascinated by not so much fraud, but how to protect things, so to speak. And my current feed, like just from Google alerts, essentially, I never turned it off from Payments Guardian. And so I started getting a lot of notifications about fraud alerts, things like that, just happening all over the world. For example, Amp, Zen, end of last year, they recorded over $1 million in fraud from employees due to AI. And so it started kind of getting me. That's kind of where it kicked off in regards to things, and just listening closer to more and more cases of I don't want to say accelerated fraud. I'd probably say, just because of AI. I'm not against AI. I'm completely for it. I use it every day. But I think one of the biggest things is we have no digital layer essentially for proof, and that's kind of what led to Proof ID. Um, we can't trust anything online anymore. I don't care what posting it is. You don't know who wrote it. You don't know what wrote it. Um, Most people have used. They either use it from an automation standpoint for like their messaging, their content, the images. You don't know what to believe anymore online. And so I think there's a need for some type of ID verification in regards to the original content. This also happened, I think, with Grubhub last year, or maybe it was end of last year. Also, people were taking pictures. Grubhub, you order your food through a mobile app, kind of like a DoorDash. They get their food and they take a picture of it. They upload it to whatever platform is out there and say, hey, make my food show incorrectly. They download that image, they send it back to Grubhub, and they ask for a refund. Again, that's fraud. That's fraud to the restaurants. That's fraud to Grubhub. That's fraud to anybody that's in that entire process. And so, when we have this images, content, text, articles, you name it, if it's online, there's no there's no layer that shows what was the original content and who uploaded it from an ownership standpoint. If you want to think back to pre-internet, right? Pre-internet, we trusted every website that came across the internet, right? And up until I don't know, it was 90s, maybe 80s or 90s. We know to look for a lock. Most of us know to look for a lock in the upper right-hand corner for an HTTPS for the protocol. We know that site is legit. We don't have that when it comes to AI generated content. We just don't. There's another application that it comes up in my feed, because I on the side I do a lot of automation and work with small businesses to help them with some automation. They can't always afford a $3,000 to $5,000 workflow. but a couple $100 here and there for a local business, it'll help them out. So that's kind of what I do on the side. And sometimes in my feed, I get a app that says clone somebody's YouTube channel, right? You can literally upload a link. You can clone their entire following. You can clone everything from their feed. That's stealing. That's fraud. Again, right? Like that you didn't originally create it. So therefore, if you're copying somebody else's content, plagiarism, fraud, whatever you want to call it, but if they're monetizing from it, that's you're stealing from somebody else's pocket. And so kind of started, like I said, playing around with some different ideas in regards to how to create it. I've got an API already created in regards to things. And granted, I had some help with some other friends because I'm not the first person to be able to say, hey, I know how to build an API. I know how to connect an API. That is not my background. My background is sales primarily. But I do believe that that's kind of where we're headed with when it comes to AI. There's fraud alone. Fraud has always existed, right? At the moment, I don't care, money, content, whatever. Somebody's always trying to take a shortcut. Fraud alone globally is a $7.5 trillion market. It's massive. You're looking at that's almost, I think, 3 to 5 times the Japan's GDP, which is ridiculous. It's a massive problem. It's an infrastructure problem. It's not something that, I don't want to say we couldn't have predicted, but when AI came out, we opened Pandora's box, and we're going to see a lot more fraud happen from it, I think.
Right. Yeah, I see. Of course, these are more people they're not really stealing, but there's a lot of so-called AI slop out there, and there are people so there are people making fake videos on YouTube using AI, people believing them, and they're getting money for this. It's not. I don't know if that's really what you constitute fraud, but it's not necessarily honest either.
I wouldn't consider if you're the original creator of creating it, I think that is legit. You're the creator, but I think at the same point, let's say you posted a video and then all of a sudden, I'm going to download your video, or I can transcribe your entire video that you worked hard on, and I can put it into ChatGPT and say, hey, make a couple tweaks in regards to this, and I can just re-upload another video. I think there's an overlap in regards to some fraud in regards to things. You'd have to look at, I think it goes back to even, and I know some developers will probably call me out on this in regards to things, but right, I think it was Google and Oracle, right? The fight between them in regards to code and so forth, and stealing of it and so forth. I think there's a difference between using a fraction, right? I think it should be at least some kind of guardrails in place. Maybe a fraction of the content is recreated, but if you're trying to go out there and purposely mislead somebody for money, that's complete fraud, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of going back. Going back to your original example of people defrauding Grubhub. If you take something, even if you created it originally from scratch, but it's meant to damage somebody, not necessarily Grubhub, just anybody, by using that kind of system. And that's what I was referring to as kind of the AI slop, is that people are not. I don't know what kind of effort goes into AI slop, but there are people out there the entire channels of this. So So what is somebody who comes to the talk? What are they going to walk away with? What's going to be the big thing they walk away with?
I really think that biggest thing that people will walk away with is, I'm hoping, is having their eyes opened a little bit more. Trying to, when they're creating things, create them from the beginning. If you don't know how to create it, don't copy somebody else's stuff, because you don't know what you're copying, first off. Right. But remember, when you're using, these tools, whether it be Gemini, ChatGPT, Perplexity, I can't even think of Claude, these, remember at the bottom, it does say, it's prone to errors, and it is pulling everything from the internet, right? So it's a machine, it's a tool. And I think the biggest thing is, one, to remember it's a tool. It is not 100% accurate in regards to things. Even from a coding standpoint, it's not 100% yet. And even when it gets it somewhat right, you've got to worry about all the patching that goes beyond it. Right. But I think the biggest thing that I really want people to open their eyes to is, if I create something, how can I make sure that this isn't taken from somebody else, or taken by somebody else? How do I protect it? And trademarks do some good and everything else and so forth, but I do believe that like what we've created here is, like essentially a stamp that says, hey, it was created on this date, this point in time, and this is when it was online. That's what I hope people use it for, or at least walk away with.
Okay. Want to remind everybody that Memphis Agent Camp is on March 16th, 2026. That is a Monday. It is free. It is virtual. And if you go to this shortened URL here, you'll be able to RSVP, and I'll be able to keep you up to date with details as the event gets closer. All right, so we already saw proofid.cc is your website, and then you're also on LinkedIn at Christopher Bulin. Anything that any closing thoughts you would like to leave us with?
No, not really. Like I said, just looking forward to the online event and hopefully get some good content out of it. Just besides myself speaking and everybody else that's speaking, you've got quite a lineup there. So.
Well, I think it's gonna be a good event, and glad you're gonna be a part of it. So, Christopher, thank you very much for your time tonight, and we'll see you on March 16th.
Thanks again, Doug. Appreciate it.
Thank you.